Oh, hi there. I would like to talk about the unrestricted free agent tracker as of now. I guess the worst move I've seen so far is signing Joe Thornton for a 1-year, $8 million contract. He didn't have that great a season. I mean, he did have injury. He is really old for a hockey player. I think his time is done. I don't think San Jose should have bothered signing him. As many of you know, Patrick Marleau signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and there was some talk of neither one of them wanting to sign with San Jose if one of them left. But Toronto actually got an even worse deal. I mean, Patrick Marleau had an okay season, but they want too much money for him. $6.5 million, 3 years, no waive, no trade clause. Like, they're the two most overrated unrestricted free agents. I could see from San Jose's perspective of the the nostalgia of having the old team and the San Jose Sharks not just crumbling and starting a rebuild, because they don't have to rebuild because they got a fair amount of talent on there. Obviously not a big name like Joe Thornton is the reason for that. Like, Joe Thornton's had many good years, but a lot of his points were assists, and I mean, a lot of people aren't going to agree with me on this, but assists, in my opinion, are for the most part, inconsequential. Like, I think it should be judged purely on the play, whether an assist should count or not, because quite often it's, like, the player didn't do anything significant. He just, made some sort of a small pass to the player, and it was the player who went out of his way and got the job done. He buried the puck behind the net. In the fantasy pool, that would mess a lot of people up because they rely on players that, get 50, 60, 70 points, in particular defensemen, in assists. Like, for most defensemen, to get 12 goals is really exceptional. But to rack up the assists is a real easy thing to do, because usually it means you're in the offensive zone, which means it's a team effort, and you make a pass, and then maybe that person makes a pass, and then it ends up being a goal. There are instances where I think assists are that they are the play. Like if it's some sort of stretch ice pass and it leads to a breakaway or something like that. Like, there are examples where assists are important, but at the end of the day, it's who buries it in the back of the net, even if it is a dirty garbage goal. Because if it's a nice, passing play, that's not what made your team win. It was whoever put it behind the net. And a lot of the players that have been signed on this free agent tracker, they don't put up goals. Kuntsevich from Washington, he signed a massive deal, like $60 million over, and he didn't even have 20 goals. He had 19 and something like 40 assists. Like, he was definitely a player worth hanging on to, but it wasn't worth it. You could dig up some guy from the minor leagues who has the physical caliber he has, the hockey skill he has, and pay him close to nothing. That's something that annoys me. It becomes these mini cult of personalities in individual players with their agents, management, their association with the league. It becomes their name. It's like their name is with a team, and you're supposed to play for the crest on your team, not for the name on the back, but in reality that's not what it looks like. It looks like the players are in it for themselves, and they want to win a Stanley Cup, obviously, and maybe their reasons are going to be more complicated than I know, because the door is closed for guys like us. We don't see what these guys really talk about because it's a business. Well, what other players got moved around? Well, it was expected that Ryan Miller was going to sign with Anaheim. That comes to no surprise. He took a pay cut too, at $2 million and a year, which he deserved because he did pathetic in Vancouver. Absolutely pathetic. He let in so many bad goals and made Roberto Luongo look so much better. And a lot of people were too harsh on Roberto Luongo. And maybe I'm not being particularly nice about Ryan Miller, but I was not satisfied with his performance at all. And in Anaheim, I don't think his career is going to get to the next step that he wants it to. I think he's slowly on his way out the door. He will probably hang around Anaheim for a little bit, maybe another team afterwards, but his big splash in the NHL is said and done. And that's too bad because, you know, he's not that old. He's like, what, 36? You know, you're not an old man when you're 36 years old, but in the NHL, I guess you are, when some, you know, firecracker, spring gun, 20-year-old shows up in the league and has a zippy, fast, full of energy, full of pep. I guess when you're 36, you ain't got so much pep. There isn't anything I couldn't do now that I couldn't do when I was 20. I'm 31 now, so, you know, as a hockey player, I'd be what they'd consider middle-aged, which is too bad, but you do see a significant decline in most NHLers' ability when they get to around about 35. Yeah, well, most of the time anyway. But at that point, usually their status in the NHL is strengthened, solidified. Like you got Justin Williams, for example. He's getting paid $4.5 million for 2 years, while on a loser team like Carolina, which might be relocated, even though they won a Stanley Cup, because they don't have much of a fan base, because, you know, people, I guess, are stupid in Carolina. I don't know, maybe they just like football over there or something. But, you know, he's a big name. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but even so, he was only 50 points on a high-scoring team like Washington. So, his days of being significant in the NHL are over as well. So $4.5 million when you could pick up a couple guys from the minors for a lot less, and, you know, take a chance on them. You know, a fresh face. You know what to expect from the. Well, you know what to expect from a guy like Justin Williams. Maybe he'll be consistent. He knows the game, but he's getting older. He's going to be 36 later this year, so that's too old to be giving that kind of money to players. Jaromir Jagr is probably going to have to retire. Back in the 90s, he was a staple. Everyone knew about him, and everyone really liked him, and he was a fantastic hockey player. But he should have compromised if he really wanted to continue to play in the NHL. He wanted too much money out of the Florida Panthers, and they were right to say, we're not signing you because you're too expensive and you're too old. He didn't have that great a season. And just for having the name, like the cult of personality of Jaromir Jagr on your team, it ain't worth it if you ain't going to win a Stanley Cup because of it. Yeah, the Canucks signed Sam Gagner. I think that, well, I'm not sure exactly what to think of that. Because Sam Gagner has had some, you know, less than productive years. Did not bat on Columbus. Columbus was a good team last year. He got about 50 points on their team, mostly assists, and we just discussed what I think about assists. Still, $3 million. That's a significant chunk of money for a guy who didn't even get 20 goals. And the thing is, Columbus wasn't a high-scoring team anyway. They did well, but none of their players really scored a lot of goals or did a lot of things. Which is good if you can get the whole team to contribute to something, but that means they've got chemistry. That's how they got it to work, and Sam Gagner may not have chemistry on Vancouver. He may not do as well. We don't know, and he's young enough that that's an acceptable contract to make, but I would still question it, and we'll just have to see how that plays out. Michael Dozzato, also expensive player, one-way contract, which means can't send him to the minors if he's not doing too well or anything like that. Or someone else could claim him, and then we have to pay the bulk of his salary anyway, and it's just not worth it. I like what Chicago does. Chicago is an entertaining hockey club, and not just because they won the Stanley Cups, although that is a big plus, but because they got exciting players. They're able to move things around, and even though they got limited cap space, they're able to make things work. And bringing back Patrick Sharp, bringing back Brandon Saad, those are big things for the team, that they're able to trade players, and sometimes they get them back, maybe a year or two later, which a lot of hockey clubs can't do. In particular, the Vancouver Canucks. As soon as a player's gone from the Canucks, that's it, they're gone. And as far as pleasing the crowd goes, it is a big plus to bring back favorites. And Patrick Sharp was a favorite in Chicago. He helped them win a couple Stanley Cups. He was there when the team was good, but hadn't reached their full potential yet. And Chicago was able to bring him back and pay him like nothing as well. He didn't have a good season in Dallas, which has to be taken into consideration. But as a name, as a cult of personality, as a PR enhancement for the team, as a boost of morale, not that you would think they need an excuse for a boost of morale. I mean, Chicago Blackhawks fans, come on, man. A lot of them didn't even like the Chicago Blackhawks before they won the Stanley Cup. And their ratings went down when they didn't do so well last year. I think by 25% or something, if I remember correctly. And I'm just going, you spoiled fucking brats. Just because your team's not winning, you have to turn, go, ugh, I'm not interested in hockey if we're not winning. Maybe people go, well, you say you're a Vancouver Canucks fan, you have 7 Vancouver jerseys, 7 Vancouver jerseys, different ones. And they go, well, you're a traitor because you like other teams as well. You're only supposed to like one team. I disagree. And there are things I like and don't like about the Canucks organization. And I think that is thinking from a more intelligent perspective. Because, certain individuals and groups and organizations may do things you like, but there are also going to be other factors that say no. I'm going to say no, I don't like that particular aspect of where the team is going. I didn't like them doing this, didn't like them doing that. And that's individualism. That's going, these people were responsible for making these moves, shifting money here and there. It's the internal politics of a team. And it's things like that that show the corruption of the game, of how things are very strange behind the scenes. For example, Nick Bonino, he just signed a big contract with Nashville, and he was playing on Pittsburgh. And just a few weeks ago, Mike Fisher in a press conference said that they don't like us and we don't like them. So I don't. We're probably never going to know the politics of why Nick Bonino went from Pittsburgh to Nashville. When Vancouver played Boston, no players from Boston directly came to here. Louis Eriksson made his way here and bombed when he got here. Oh God, is he terrible. and he's expensive too. Fuck, is he gonna be hard to get rid of? I hope he does a lot better. Yeah, but it's not quite the same thing. I mean, when Zdeno Chara refused to pick a Canuck player at the All-Stars, it really said something. It said, we absolutely despise the Canucks. And I can't see if anything the Canucks actually did other than the hit on with Aaron Rome on Nathan Horton. I'm sure there was a lot of insults being hurled at each other and, vicious comments and things like that behind the scenes that we don't see. Guaranteed there was. But that seems to be the pattern for most NHL playoff Stanley Cup final games. Like Pittsburgh didn't like Nashville, and I doubt San Jose liked Pittsburgh. And now players are they're developing other aspects of the game that influence their decision making. And it's not always about money, although money is a big deal. But you just wonder why good players or players that can get a lot of money are interested in going to places that aren't going to go anywhere and may not even exist as a franchise in the near future, like Carolina, for example. Why would Justin Williams want to go there? I'm sure he has a reason. But we'll see. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of other players that have been moved around. Joe Thornton at $8 million. Damn, man, is he not worth it? He's at the point where he had his chance in the NHL. He's got to retire. And if he doesn't do it this year, well, he's not going to because he just signed an $8 million contract. But the next year, probably. And Patrick Marleau, solid player, but he's too old. He's too old to justify paying him $6.5 million. Other than his cult of personality and his management team and his, player staff and all them getting him this deal. And to me, that says that Toronto is looking for a big name, and they're not looking for a team that's going to win them a Stanley Cup. I'm not interested in the Canucks picking up big names if it means they're not building a team to win the Stanley Cup. And there's no reason a bunch of young fresh kids can't win the Stanley Cup. There's no reason other than money and politics that inhibits young players from outperforming the good, well-known, well-established good players. And there's one player in particular I would like to name, but I'm not going to because I've been ridiculed for mentioning him too often. I don't hate the guy, I said that, but a lot of things about him I'm going to criticize. But anyway, I'm not going to mention his name. It's not important. Yeah, not really any huge blockbuster deals happened that were unexpected. I mean, a couple of players got huge contracts, but nothing totally drastic. I mean, Radulov went to Dallas. He's getting paid a significant chunk of money. Also, not a big goal scorer as well, and well known for being a cunt by going to Russia. Yeah, a few players here and there. Yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see how things how things go, and see how entertaining the next season is. Because right now it looks like business as usual. In the NHL, the background noise is rhubarb. If you don't know what rhubarb is, it's in old movies when there was a scene in a room with a lot of people in it, and there was just two people talking, and the crowd behind him was talking, you know, like it was a party or a social event or something. All they would say is rhubarb, rhubarb, and it made the sound sound like there was conversation in the background, but there wasn't. They were just saying rhubarb, rhubarb. And that's kind of what the NHL is doing right now. They're signing players, and that's the tiny bit of the conversation, and then they're pretending for everyone that there's a big conversation in the back, but realistically they're just saying rhubarb, rhubarb over again. And there's so many of them saying it that it becomes, you know, it just sounds like conversation that you just can't hear, but really there's nothing to be learned there. That's why I'm pissed off with NHL.com. Absolutely worthless site. You really, if you go digging into it, other than learning statistics and watching an occasional video of maybe an interview or a good play, there's nothing to be learned there. Which is unfortunate because, you know, intelligent people or maybe pseudo-intellectuals look at the National Hockey League and go, oh, if you dedicate your life to this and learning about that, therefore you're stupid because there's nothing to be learned here. And then they go off and, you know, study what they find interesting. But they're also the stupid ones because there's a lot more to the NHL than is easily found. Anyway, this is my video. I will talk to you guys another time. And have a good day. I'll see you later.